Fans pleaded with her for years to go and to quit waiting for a ring that never materialized. However, no one anticipated this. Chrissy changed the subject during a live interview intended to commemorate her most recent endeavor. Everything upside down with a single startling phrase that ended years of conjecture. "I just got married." The host became cold. The crowd sent forth a yell. And somewhere backstage, Jim Jones apparently stood there in absolute disbelief, unable to grasp what he had heard. Following almost 10 years of public outcry, Chrissy had finally moved on after many ups and downs, proposals, tears, and second chances, and she decided to make the announcement in front of millions of people. Social media was inundated with video in a matter of minutes. Even Jim's closest buddies went into meltdown mode, starting phoning him continuously. Was this thing really real? Was Chrissy's marriage a reality? To whom, if at all? Like wildfire, rumors proliferate. A Miami mystery guy, a business mogul, perhaps even a former intimate acquaintance of Jim. This wasn't your typical A-time of hip-hop and love. This was a lady who'd spent years in emotional limbo, finally taking her power back and doing it in the boldest, most public manner imaginable. Now, however, everyone is wondering why she waited till to make it public now. When Jim is humiliated on live television, how will he react? That night, the atmosphere in the studio was electrifying. What started off as a straightforward, informal interview became one of the most startling scenes in the history of reality TV. After months of silence, Chrissy Lampkin finally consented to speak about her current endeavors and future ambitions on a live talk program. Not even the producers, but no one. As the cameras rolled and Essie sat composed and poised, it was anticipated that she would make the type of revelation that would go viral on the internet in a matter of minutes. Her confident but restrained enthusiasm made her seem magnificent. When the host inquired about the crowd drew in to see her connection with Jim Jones, everyone had been waiting for this inquiry. "You know, I'll always love Jim, but life moves on. I'm married now," Chrissy remarked, grinning slightly. The studio exploded. There were gasps. The crowd began to murmur, and the presenter froze in shock. Jim was backstage, viewing everything on a monitor. According to sources, his response was immediate. Clearly terrified, he threw his headset down and raced off stage. That moment shattered something inside of him, since he usually carried himself as if nothing could bother him. He was unaware that Chrissy had gotten married, much less that she had made such a prominent announcement. In a few seconds, social media began to circulate the show's footage. Jim was being tagged by fans everywhere. Videos of him proposing to Chrissy years ago and her later acknowledging she had married someone else are side by side. She really waited for years to just move on in that manner. A fan left a remark. Another person wrote, "This is retribution for Jim's manipulation of her emotions." However, there was a little-known backstory behind the viral event. A tale of patience, heartache, and ultimately letting go. Chrissy's close associates said that she had been done with Jim for some time, and that she had wanted to wait to tell anybody until she was sure of her next course of action. Apparently, the guy she married wasn't someone new. He'd been in her group for years, a long-standing buddy who had supported her throughout all of her battles. Every tear, every public embarrassment. "He was there when everyone else disappeared," said a source. Fans were deeply affected by the information that she didn't go looking for love, it found her. Had supported Jim and Chrissy from the beginning. They had a famous love tale. From her popping the question on national television to their unquestionable chemistry, to their emotional reunions. Despite the chaos, they thought they would locate their way back to one another. However, it felt different this time. What Chrissy said wasn't loaded with resentment or rage. They brought tranquility. The kind that only appears once you have really moved on. Jim's camp attempted damage management in the meantime. A close buddy of his went live, saying Jim was taken aback by the news. He was completely unaware that she was seeing someone. He claimed that they were still communicating and resolving their differences. But the internet wasn't buying it. Too many admirers recalled how Chrissy had pleaded with Jim for commitment over the years while he avoided the subject. She allowed him 10 years. She had to choose herself at some point, someone tweeted. The mystery grew as more information became available and people began to speculate about Chrissy's husband, who he was, what he did, and how long they'd been dating. He was a Miami businessman, according to some. Some said he had ties to the music business but kept quiet. And when paparazzi fans thought Chrissy had been giving away clues all along when they saw her wearing a brilliant diamond ring weeks before to the interview, it became more obvious that this wasn't a marketing gimmick as more people saw the video. Chrissy was. She had moved on from her long-term relationship with Jim Jones and had a new partner. Title now. One that accompanied the dedication and respect. She had been turned down for years. However, Jim's silence spoke more than words could, as Chrissy's admirers rejoiced over her newfound happiness. Post. He didn't reply or refute it. He believed she would always be there, and those closest to him stated he was in a lot of pain. According to one source, he took her for granted and is now realizing that she is no longer there. By the conclusion of On Live television, Chrissy Lannan revealed she was married to Jim Jones, making headlines all night. The video was continuously shown by news channels, and blogs analyzed every word and action. The once iconic pair had officially come to an end, and this time it wasn't just talk. It was true. Fans couldn't stop arguing about who was right or incorrect. Did Chrissy's public announcement betray Jim, or was this in any case the occasion signaled the end of an era and the return of her authority after years of waiting? The aftermath of Chrissy's life marked the start of a new chapter that neither of them could have predicted. TV reveals struck the internet like a tsunami wave. Within minutes, her name was popular on all social media platforms. Fans were astounded by what they had just seen. Chrissy Lampkin, after years of the last surprise had been revealed, she was already married to someone else and was waiting for Jim Jones to marry her. Every possible blog and gossip website reprinted, remixed, and repeated the video. Even those who had not followed their narrative were aware that a significant event had just occurred. In the meanwhile, Jim Jones was in a downward spiral behind the scenes, and according to those close to him, he departed the studio without saying a word to anybody. He turned off his phone, ignored calls, and drove away without saying a word. He looked shattered, a guy who took pleasure in maintaining his cool, but the pain was too intense to conceal. It wasn't only about losing her, according to one source, and he really didn't see it coming. Jim had always been the one to realize that she had moved on without his knowing. The one in charge. The one making decisions. The one who could go knowing Chrissy would still be there. Yet this moment, she wasn't. For years. Their relationship had been public, difficult and messy. They had protected one another through many rumors, argued on TV, then reunited off camera. However, those recollections had now become a sad reminder of what he had lost. Friends who made an effort to. According to close acquaintances, Jim first attempted to seem calm, but he kept repeating that one statement from her. Unbothered. He told people, "I'm pleased for her," but deep inside he felt everything but. He had been drinking more, going out late, and canceling studio sessions, according to those who saw him behind closed doors. "He's upset, dude." One source said, "It's one thing to lose a lady. Losing the person who helped you create your life is a different matter." Over time, friction grew between their inner circles began to form, and some of Chrissy's acquaintances openly criticized Jim for squandering her. Time for more than 10 years. In an interview, one person said she gave him her youth, her loyalty, her everything. And he couldn't just commit to her. That's not love. Jim's followers retorted that Chrissy had used the news for publicity, which constitutes control. If she was genuinely pleased, she wouldn't need to do things like weigh. A friend of Jim's posted, but Chrissy stayed silent. No remarks, interviews, or clapbacks. And that quiet was more powerful than any. It wasn't about establishing a point. It was about what words could never do for her, going on without turning around. Then, in an unexpected turn of events, a leaked video shows Jim on a late. He spoke about love, loyalty, and errors on his nightly live feed, but he didn't say when he mentioned Chrissy by name. It was obvious who he was referring about. Sometimes you don't know what you have until and when it's gone, you start to realize how much you took for granted, he remarked. As soon as the live feed became viral, fans began to speculate even more. with some thinking Jim was some believed he was just releasing his sadness, while others said he was attempting to win her back. In any case, the suffering was unquestionably the strong, self-assured rapper that everyone knew seemed lost, shattered, remorseful, and human. Chrissy, meantime, seemed to be radiant, and pictures of her out with her new husband began circulating, show up on the internet for dinner dates, quiet getaways, and even unposed photos of them holding hands. Her joy seemed to come naturally to her. The stress, the continual tugging, the uncertainty was gone. For lifelong admirers of their love, she had stability at last, something she had always desired, but Jim had never given her. It was bittersweet. They'd cheered for them since the early days of love and hip-hop. Observing their highs and lows like a soap opera in real life, they had seen the chemistry, the passion and the love, as well as the suffering, misunderstandings and ego. And now, after years of anticipating a wedding, Chrissy went ahead and made it happen without him, so it never occurred. Jim began to open up as the weeks went by. More in his music. Studio snippets suggested that his new tracks were lyrically charged and very personal. About squandered opportunities, love, loss, and betrayed trust. Fans were persuaded by one unpublished lyric that surfaced online that he was referring to Chrissy. "I constructed a palace, but I neglected to mention that the queen believed that love lasted forever. Guess I misread the dream behind the scenes." Mutual friends attempted to persuade them to communicate, hoping for, they have too much history to say farewell in a decent manner, so they need some kind of closure. One source claimed that Chrissy wasn't interested. "She's done. Another Chrissy doesn't go back once she makes up her mind," the person said. After all, Jim and Chrissy had been the epitome of ride or die, and that was difficult for many to understand. However, sometimes the most compelling love tales end with tiredness rather than betrayal. Chrissy. Her declaration was not simply about her new spouse. She had waited, prayed, and battled long enough. By the end of the month, she had regained her tail, her authority, and her calm. Jim had quit blogging altogether, while Chrissy had restricted her online activity to work-related material. However, the harm, or maybe the recovery, had already been completed, and their chapter was over. So this time there would be no engagement to mend it, reunion, special, or surprise. And while fans continued to debate who was correct and who was incorrect, there's no denying that Chrissy's choice not only shocked Jim, but also made him confront his own reality. Because sometimes people learn to live without you when you wait too long to pick them. The quiet that lasted longer than anybody anticipated after Chrissy's bombshell. And for weeks, neither she nor Jim Jones addressed the scenario in public, but fans could sense the tension in the air. This was years of love, not just another split or celebrity news. Loyalty, grief, and pride rising to the surface in real time. Jim had built his reputation on confidence, toughness, and control, but this circumstance took that away from him. In private, his companion said that he seldom left the studio, spending his evenings composing and alternating between sadness and rage. Recording, deleting, and rewriting songs that were plainly about Chrissy. He couldn't concentrate, one source added. Fans could feel the weight on his face when he eventually reappeared online, and every lyric sounded like sorrow. His voice was quiet, his eyes were weary, and he went live for a few minutes saying, "You have to accept that people make decisions. Adore doesn't last forever, even if you may adore someone." It was Jim's most serene, vulnerable side that anybody had ever seen, yet even yet, there was no denying the melancholy. Chrissy, meantime, was acting in the other way, retreating while Jim seemed to be doing well. She resumed her public engagements, including interviews, brand events, red carpets, and the tightness that used to characterize her had vanished, and she exuded a brilliant vibrancy. Seemed lighter and more relaxed, and she was even seen leaving a restaurant hand-in-hand with her new husband, Marcus. It wasn't a show. It wasn't presented in New York. That picture ignited the internet once again, and it was genuine. "Jim, she's really out here joyful while he's coming apart, and people couldn't handle it." Others criticized her for showing off her new life when Jim was obviously in pain. According to the remark, while many she waited years for him to be proud to stand at her side. But he knew better. having followed their journey from the start. Now that she has someone who does, people still want to criticize her, one admirer said. However, just when everyone believed the drama was coming to an end, a leaked tape appeared, which allegedly sparked a whole new discussion. From a private phone conversation between Jim and a close friend, Jim was heard complaining about his voice was husky as he replied, "Chrissy's new husband. She married him to hurt me." Back in the day, the guy was in the "he's been planning all day." The pal on the other line attempted to reassure him. Jim, however, would have none of it. "He ain't got what I got," Jim added. "She just wanted to make a statement, but she will always love me in her heart." The video quickly became popular. Fans posted a range of responses on social media. Some expressed